Hey, Dave here. I thought I'd do a, short video on the night. I don't really have a lot to say, so I just thought I'd talk about a comic I read, or a graphic novel, or a collected volume, and a couple of movies I saw this week. But I did read this. It's called The One Hand and the Six Fingers. It's two books actually. The One Hand was written by Ram V, and The Six Fingers was written by Dan Waters. And what it is like it's kind of a murder mystery, and the two books dovetail into each other. There's 5 issues of The One Hand, and there's 5 issues of The Six Fingers. And so you read the first issue of The One Hand, and then you read the issue of Six Fingers, and then One Hand, Six Fingers, and they kind of like dovetail like that and tell a story. Now, the art in this is what kind of attracted me to it, and it's really graphic, or graphically styled. And a lot of these patterns also appear within the story. Like, say, it takes place in a futuristic city of America in the year, I think it's 3467 or 2467. So it's set pretty far into the future. But like I said, the art in it is really nice. I particularly like this artist here that kind of does this realistic, photorealistic look to it. And you can see it kind of has a little bit of a Blade Runner look to it. And I thought that was kind of, you could tell that influence in the storyline too. But it's about this detective here called Ari Nasser, who's getting ready to retire, but gets drawn back into staying on the job because he caught a serial killer called The One Hand, I guess. Or no, the serial killer's name is, I can't remember his name, but he caught him, put him in jail, and then there was a copycat serial killer that he caught as well and put in jail. But now that he's getting ready to retire, there's another person that has also started doing that. And so he wants to continue his job until he can catch this new serial killer that has sort of the same MO as the other two guys, modus operandi. So, yeah, he stays on the job, and his supervisor allows him to do that. But even though it's, okay, it says here, the name of the town is Novena, and the date is November 5th, 2873. So it kind of looks like Blade Runner, but occasionally you'll see, the city isn't all that different from, say, how it is now. And even the cars, there's no flying cars or anything. The cars all look like they're from detective fiction or anything. Here's a picture of one, or even like from the 40s is what I would say. So he teams up with this guy here who's still on the force, and both of them are looking for this serial killer. And so that's the part that they go off on the serial killer. Now, I generally like this graphic novel, but what I didn't like is that I read it the first time, and when I got to the end, I was like, what happened? I didn't get it, and so I immediately went back to the start of it again and read it over again. And sometimes I'll do that with comics I don't get, or like, say, movies or something, trying to see if I just didn't get around to picking up certain clues or something. But even on the second reading, I didn't quite get what they were striving at. I mean, it's kind of a Kafka-esque tale, or something like, what's his name? Albert Camus, Camus, type tale, where it's sort of, maybe not ambiguous, but kind of there are like surreal maybe aspects to it. But anyway, it's about, like I said, it's a serial killer, and there are certain cogs within the story which are like androids in the Blade Runner movie. But they, I think they could have explained a little bit what a cog was, maybe, like had a little footnote or, a little block explaining that. I mean, you pick it up, it's not that obscure, but still, sometimes I think that might have helped a little bit. I don't mind a little bit of enigma, but with this story here, I just kind of thought they could have maybe explained things a little bit better. Now, this is the art from the Six Fingers, and it's a little bit different from the other one. It's a little bit more minimal, particularly in the backgrounds, but still, like, they did kind of mesh well together. And this story is about this one guy here that's in graduate school. He's a archaeologist, is how it starts out, and he's always taken this object around with him that he claims is an arrowhead, but is actually the head of one of those, I don't know if you've ever seen them in a novelty store, a drinking bird, and you stick the bird's head down in a glass of water and it'll raise up and it'll go back down and raise up and go back down. And I think they're talking about how things in motion stay in motion, and I don't know, it's just a real hard story to explain. But for the most part, I did like parts of it until it got to about the middle part of the book, and then it kind of lost me. So I had to go online and try and figure out what they were talking about as a whole. Generally, I don't mind that too much, but with some things, like in this, it kind of bugged me a little bit. It's kind of like, I just read this twice and I don't quite get what you're talking about. They're talking about certain things about like how we're all caged, or how we are all stuck in our own pattern, and sometimes how it's hard to break out of that pattern as individuals. That's some of what they're kind of talking about. And I don't know. It was an interesting story. I did go online and kind of look up, like, see if I could find out what I was missing. And there are two things that I didn't really pick up on. There's one generation of cogs or androids in the thing, and they're kind of like worker cogs, and they clean up disasters and, do manual labor that nobody else wants to do. And then there's a second version of them, cogs, androids, that do things that are more like work, like sex work, which the detective has is in a story with one of the sex robots, and they do like manual labor, like assembly line type stuff. So that gives humans more time to have leisure time, or I guess if you want to work, you can. But see, there are large parts of the story that it's kind of left up to your own input as to how you read it. And like in the latter part of the story, it's kind of hard to talk about it without giving away some plots and everything. But once Ari, the detective, finally catches up with the serial killer, they start crashing through walls or going through walls. Walls open up and close, and they can kind of jump from one place in time to the other. And I didn't really get that. That didn't make any much sense to me. But overall, it was an intriguing read, and I like the art in it a lot. So would I recommend it? Yeah, maybe, if you don't mind things that are a bit of an enigma. And like I said, you can probably go online and do like I did and kind of read up on maybe what they're talking about. But I would prefer that, say, if it's a movie or a book or graphic novel or whatever, for things to be tied up, maybe not neatly in a bow, but a little bit more than what they did there. Now, the other thing I saw this week that I thought was pretty interesting was this documentary on Blood, Sweat, and Tears, which is this right here, and I'll try and leave a link for it below if you're interested in watching it. But it says what the hell happened to Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and it's about Blood, Sweat, and Tears' early career back in the I guess they started in the 68, 69, 70s, in that era. And they kind of started out with a little bit of a psychedelic bent to them, but once Al Cooper left the band, which was a keyboardist and singer, they got David Clayton Thomas, and this takes place with him. And basically, this film is, I really like the doc because it goes back in time, and it actually shows Blood, Sweat, and Tears performing during that time period, and they actually have film from that era that they kind of snuck back into the United States, because they're going over to what was then considered behind the Iron Curtain, the countries of Romania, Czechoslovakia, I believe they went to Poland at the time in 68, were countries under the umbrella of Russia. So they kind of had to, what's their P's and Q's, and kind of conform a certain bit, because they didn't want to get arrested or whatever. And plus, David Clayton Thomas, which I didn't know was Canadian, and really the record companies that sent them over there to do this, they kind of put them over a barrel and said if they didn't do it, and I don't know why the record company did this, but put the band over a barrel and said, if you don't go do this, then we're going to tip the authorities off on David Clayton Thomas because he's overstayed his green card or whatever. I thought that was a pretty dirty pool, but anyway, they went ahead and did it. But anyway, if you like the band Blood, Sweat, and Tears, or you like the things that take place in the 60s, I really thought it was interesting, and I really liked the way that they showed the crowd from those countries and how much appreciative they were to see just live music. Because back in that time, in some of those countries, they would even like pick you up if you were, say, had your hair too long or whatever. It seems absurd to say that these days, but that's the way it was back then. But yeah, I recommend the movie if you like Blood, Sweat, and Tears, or just interested in that time period. This is the other movie I saw the other day. It's called The One That Got Away. It's from, I believe, 1957, or it was made in the 50s. And it's a British film about, it takes place during World War II. And this German gets shot down there in Britain, and he crashes his plane and is immediately arrested and taken to British authorities. And of course, the authorities kind of want to interview him and see if they could get any kind of information from him, that might aid them in their war effort. But he's very conniving. And also, this is taken from a true story. So anyway, they arrest this guy, and he's a famous German fighting ace. And the guy tells the interviewer that he will escape from his confines before the guy can even write him up in his notes or whatever. Of course, he kind of laughs it off. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting movie. I can't really say it's a classic movie. It's kind of like told, very much, just from point A to point B, and like you see how the guy kind of comes up with a scheme on how he wants to escape, and how things were handled back then. I was a little bit surprised that say the British would do a film about a German, or a Nazi actually, back during the time period, but still, it was a pretty good watch. It's in black and white, and this is on YouTube as well, with a few little ads in it. But if you're into that sort of type film about a war movie, then I think it's a really good movie to watch. So anyway, hope you're doing well. Got yard work to do tomorrow, so we'll talk to you later.